Right, let's do this. We need those things. I've already clicked on the things that we need. Let's hope we get lucky. Right, chill was the thing we most needed, and we've got fucking enough of it now, and we got pain. Some chill would have been nice, but, you know, we'll take what we can get. Sarah's life was just as filled with people as it has always been. She lived in the same school and the same faces surrounded her. Well, yes, if we take all context out of things, then a lot of things are very similar. And yet, it was a strange and lonely life. Again, context is needed here. More often than not, there was no one at all that she could talk to. And when she was sent out on errands and walked through the streets, a forlorn little figure carrying a basket or a parcel, she always felt as if the crowds hurrying past her made her loneliness greater. When I was Princess Sarah, and I went out in the town in my carriage or walking with Mariette, everyone liked to turn and smile at me. Well, I mean, now you're an orphan. You might, you know, have diseases or... I mean, she's a girl, so she obviously has cooties as well. No wonder people would try to ignore you. She had been a beautifully cared-for little girl, and such naturally attracted attention. As such, I presume. Her bright, eager little face, her picturesque clothing, all had been rare and pleasant to look at. So they didn't care about you, they just cared about your accessories. Those aren't real friends. No one looks at me now, no one seems to see me at all. There was, unfortunately, no shortage of poor, shabbily dressed children in the streets of London. One more was nothing remarkable at all. Even with the great shock of her change in circumstances, Sarah's body had not ceased to grow. She had been allowed to keep only the oldest and least valuable of her clothing, which now fit quite badly indeed. Looks like it fits just as poorly as it did the first time, though we appear to be getting thinner. As such, when it happened that Sarah passed by a shop window with a mirror in it, she did not at first recognize the reflected girl as herself. I mean, really? Come on, we're not that bad that we need first aid, live aid even, like singing for us yet. I think we'll be okay. Oh, Papa, what would you think of your little missus now? I don't know, ask the worms who are eating their brain. Forget I said anything. Blevett! It was unusual for Sarah and Becky both to be sent out of Miss Minchin's seminary at the same time, much less on the same errand. Do we have to carry like a cupboard through or something? After all, with neither girl in the house, cook would not have easy access to anyone to fetch and carry for her, and might be forced to best steer herself from the kitchen. However, there were times when the items needed were so bulky that even Miss Minchin could not expect Sarah to carry them alone. In that case, rather than send extra pennies for delivery, Sarah and Becky could be dispatched together. Mind your feet, miss. There's a mucky bit there. It's called horse shit, but thank you, Becky. It's fine, I do this all the time. You shouldn't oughta, miss. You ought to be up riding high in one of them carriages. Well, I'm poor, I can't do that anymore. Oh, well, you can't feel the breeze so much in a carriage, and sometimes they are very jolting. You keep lying. You are lying to yourself. And you cannot see the sights nearly so well when you are boxed in. Becky looked dubiously at the drab building fronts they were passing by. I was going to say, oh yes, maybe we should have just walked more often when I was, you know, very rich, to take in the picturesque sights of shit London. I don't know. It's very difficult. It's like, you know, like LA. If you lived near LA your whole life, you aren't going to be too illusioned with that city, are you? The same goes for me in London. If I can live half an hour away from it, it wasn't exactly picturesque. What sights? Oh no, sorry. What sights? I don't know what that accent was. Oh, you never know unless you look. There might be something nice in a shop window. You can't read the covers of the books in the shop if you are going past in a carriage. Or you might find a flower growing all unexpected in a crack between the buildings, or a pretty button that someone has lost. In truth, Sarah often found these errands disheartening, but it was her nature to make the best of things. In the face of Becky's skepticism, she relied even more upon her imagination. This isn't imagination, this is lying. You're treating her like she's some fucking child. Just then, a carriage rattled past them, its wheels striking a bump in the road and sending pebbles flying onto the pavement. Oh! Are you hurt, miss? Did one of them hit you? No, I'm fine, but I thought I saw... She bent low and picked up the largest pebble. Look, Becky, look! What is that? It's a fossil! in the cobblestone streets of London. I mean, forgive me for being skeptical, but I'm not won over with that description. She turned the stone over in her hands. On most sides it was only smooth grey stone, but at one particular angle revealed the ghostly white pattern of a shell. Just think, Becky, hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of years ago there was a creature living there. Millions? Well, I don't know. I don't know how you can tell how old a fossil is. Well, that's because you're like 4. I suppose the scientists at the museum might know. The dinosaur they had was millions of years old, I'm sure of that. Dear what? Oh dear, I don't suppose Becky's teachers at the workhouse would have told her anything about the latest scientific discoveries. Why must you say that so mockingly? Oh my god, oh well, no, I don't expect that she has an education. Ah, ghastly. Dinosaur, it means fearfully great lizard, bigger than horses, bigger ones are even bigger than houses. Like dragons? Yeah, a lot like dragons, but they died long, long time ago. All that we have left is of them is their bones in fossils just like this pebble. Even though the pebble was quite clearly did not contain a dragon bone, Becky stared at it with just as much awe. Oh, that? In rocks and stuff? Sarah smiled wistfully. I wish I could take you to the museum and show you everything that we saw. I wish I could go back. I had so much left to learn. Oh god, you're gonna get sad all of a sudden, aren't you? But you see, there are still wonderful things in our lives, full of magic and adventure. This pebble looks small and unimportant, but it holds secrets of the past. Yep. Well, once you study fossils, I don't know what... And I mean, everyone knows that, you know, studies of dinosaurs, paleontology, definitely not because of friends. I don't know what the study of fossils is, mind. Fossilology, it has to be. Even the small and overlooked creatures in the world are still precious. I know about that. Can someone tell me what a cockroach is for? Or a wasp? Becky grinned at her. Well, miss, I reckon you're more precious than I am, but won't neither of us be worth much if Cooks thinks we'd be dawdling? Sarah put the pebble back on the ground where it might be discovered by some other curious child. You're right, we had better hurry and get back to the Bastille. Still, miss? Isn't it just like a prison? I am the prisoner of conscience, locked away because I would not serve an evil regime. I have been locked up for years and years and years, and everybody has already forgotten about me. Miss Minchin is the wicked jailer who stalks up and down the halls at night with a great metal ring of keys on her belt, clanking and clanging just to taunt us. I think your dreams are becoming a little too lucid. And you, Becky, you are the prisoner in the next cell, whom I can hear through the walls but never see. I mean, she's right next to you. She's right next... You're probably offending her. Why would I be in prison? Oh, it was probably a mistaken identity. That or stealing. Someone else stole a loaf of bread because they were hungry, and the gendarmes? Guards, presumably, thought it was you, and they wouldn't listen to your story, so they locked you up. Becky nodded. It seemed perfectly plausible from her experience of the world. We must invent a secret code, a way that we can communicate with each other without our jailer overhearing us. Isn't that how cockney rhyming slang started? Oh, God, I'm going to cross the hole in the toad. Wonder what that could be, right? Gonna reach into my skyrocket for some change for the sherbet dab. Yes. I know all of the slang. And, you know, hip and shit. That way, even when we are locked in our cells, we are never alone. Oh, miss. What is it? Only that... It ain't right for me to be glad you're here, when you're only here because all the bad things that happened to you. I'm sorry. Oh, Becky, you don't have to be sorry. It is all your fault. I know you must have been very lonely in that attic by yourself sometimes. If I didn't have you, I don't know how I could survive. Is it wrong for me to be glad that you are here with me when I should be wishing that you had a happy life somewhere else? I don't think I'd know how to be happy, miss, if it weren't for you. With you. Oh, how pitiful. Sarah laughed. Oh, how light you make me feel, and how light on our feet we had better be if we don't want Cook to scold us. Yeah, you're already fucked. Like, she is gonna get really pissed off at you. Quintus Filius Est! I don't know, something fifth. Chair sex. I don't know what Phileas is, so chair sex seems plausible. Sarah sat alone in her attic room practicing the vocabulary from the Latin book she had been given. Metella mater pueri est. I must admit, I only have a very, very loose grasp on Latin because of what I know in Spanish. None of those words look Spanish to me. She could scarcely hear her own voice over the rattling of rain on the slate roof. The sound of droplets surged and danced in waves, seeming to form words she could almost understand. I cannot concentrate. She set the book on the thin mattress and looked up at the blurred, shifting images through the wet skylight. If she stood on her bed and looked out at the skylight, when it was not dark or raining, she could see the attic window of the house next to Miss Minchin's seminary. However, that window was always dark and empty. The house was vacant. Well, I mean, we could go ransacking. I wish someone else would move into that house. Someone else? No, just someone in general. Suppose that one morning I looked out and saw that window propped open and a head and shoulders framed within it. If it looked like a nice head, I might begin by saying good morning, and then all sorts of things might happen. I think this is wishful thinking. Of course, it's not really likely that anyone but underservants would sleep in an attic. Sarah looked around at the dark and dirty environment that had become her living space. All around the world was grey, and the few spots of colour, the old red footstool, the book's cover, Emily's hair, were like fish in muddy water, glimpsed for moments and then fading away. This is the best I can look forward to for the rest of my life. Hey, you're learning Latin. Come on, how many fucking servants know Latin? I think, you might be okay in the future when you're married off to someone for Miss Minchin's money. I don't know, would they pay her? I don't know how back in the future we are. To have books when Miss Minchin decides that I am worthy of them. When I am older, she will make me a teacher, but she will never pay me. There will always be more debt. She will be obliged to give me more respectable clothes for the school's sake, but they will still be plain and ugly and make it clear that I am a servant and I will never escape. By that point, if you're a teacher, you could just, go to another school. Hey, I've been teaching at this school for 3 years. That's something you could say. Then a thought came back to her, which made the colour rise in her cheek and a spark light itself in her eyes. She straightened her thin little body and lifted her head. Whatever comes cannot alter one thing. If I am a princess in rags and titters, I can still be a princess inside. Maybe you should stop worrying about being a princess. It would be easy to be a princess if I were dressed in a cloth of gold, but it is a great deal more of a triumph to be one in all the time when no one knows it. I think at that point that's just called pretending, but okay. Marie Antoinette, when she was in prison, and her throne was gone, and she only had a black gown, and her hair was white, and they insulted her and called her Widow Capet. Capet? I don't know. She was a great deal more like a queen than when she was so gay and everything was so grand. I like her best. So basically, you like people when they're miserable. You don't like people when they're doing well in life. You like people who are miserable. Oh, Jesus Christ, you get on well with some people on 4chan. Those howling mobs of people did not frighten her. She was stronger than they were, even if they were to cut her head off. Nothing that I am facing is as frightening as that. Yeah, that one thing we can be grateful for, I guess. Great, so we have 5 and a bunch of things. Not great. So much fatigue. Basically dead. Right, so pride is that one, so we need to keep one here. It's also sorrow and chill. In fact, fuck it, I think we'll put one more in there, and then there. That looks fine. So is that fatigue? I don't actually know, because if it was fatigue, that may have been a mistake. Oh, Jesus, we got 2 bad rolls. We'll soon find out. Sarah, Lavinia tells me that you have left the window in her room quite open all day long. Did I? I don't think I did that. But it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, Miss Minchin, it was an accident. Have you no thought for the weather? If it begins to rain, many of her belongings could be damaged, you stupid girl. You don't know that you are saying these things to a princess, and that if I chose, I could wave my hand and order you to execute. Well, see, if you start thinking stuff like that, then you might actually try it. And at that point, we'll be in a lot of trouble. Yes, I'm sorry, I'd better go and check all the other windows are closed properly. I only spare you because I am a princess, and you are a stupid, poor, unkind, vulgar little thing, and you didn't know any better. Please excuse me, cook. A princess must be polite. Sarah bobbed gently and walked out of the room. That girl to smile as if she hadn't been even scolded. Sometimes I cannot tell whether she hears me at all. It's as if she was living in another world. She's got more airs and graces than if she come from Buckingham Palace, that young one. She drops them out about the kitchen as if they were nothing. It is not natural. It's not a natural way for a child who has lost her only parent to behave. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll just be miserable for her. She's actually a masochist. This is what she gets off on. She goes back every night to her bedroom and just thinks of us deeply and our sorrow. Oh, that's actually an image I don't want to think about. Oh, that's going to take some removing. She is a clever girl, and that is why she is useful, but it may also turn her sly. I won't have her plotting mischief. Keep her busy. If she is tired enough, she will have no time to put to ill purposes. Sure. 5 fatigue. Oh, God, we have enough we have more than enough fatigue. Don't you worry about that. Oh, back to picturesque London. You know what, every time I look at this, I'm going, oh, why don't I live here? Oh, yes, it's because it's a shithole. The streets of London would never be perfectly clean. I mean, that's not perfectly clean. You are a bit of a perfectionist. Yeah, like ridiculous. Like never being able to complete on your promises sort of perfectionist. No matter how many brushes the street sweepers wielded, rain could not wash the mud and refuse away. It only blended them together, helping them to spread their unappetizing clutches over the city's stones. And if the streets were never clean, then it stood to reason that an entrance hall was very rarely clean either. Today it was Sarah's task to scrub away what had been tracked inside. If this dirt could talk, what stories might it have to tell? How many boots has it travelled under? Perhaps mud doesn't like indoors. If it can make it all the way back to the fields and forests, then it can grow again with the grass and the trees. I'm not sure she knows. Whatever. Oh, humble dirt, if I could, I would carry you to freedom. Sarah was jolted out of her pleasant daydreams by an all-too-familiar sound, Miss Minchin's voice raised in anger. Oh, God, what have we done? But it was not Sarah that she was scolding. Her voice appeared to be coming from the nearby classroom. Wasn't Becky in there? She crept closer to listen. The door is gonna, explode open. You're gonna be caught off guard. As well as stupid, is it expecting too much from a clod to ask that you watch where you put your feet? Yes, Mum. No, Mum. Don't you get smart with me, you wretch. That cat is worth twice what you are. Was it Becky who stepped on Tybalt earlier? I did think I had heard him screech. I'm sure she didn't mean to. Tybalt loves to curl up in the most inconvenient places. I'm always having to chase him off the stairs so no one trips over him. Unlike lazy girls, Tybalt always gets his job done. It's a fucking cat. Come on. What's a cat really doing? He sleeps half the time. We work all day and into the night. I'm sorry, Mum. I'll be more careful. You had better be. There are dozens of girls in the workhouses who could fill your position in a heartbeat. I don't actually think there are. Remember, Tybalt holds a pedigree from the National Cat Club. Sounds like it holds about as much weight as Mensa. In light of your carelessness, I am docking your wages for the week. If you do not improve, it will go worse with you. Wages? Her own servitude, of course, came without recompense. Miss Minchin had emphasized repeatedly that Sarah was in her debt. Anything she might earn was immediately deducted and applied to that balance. But Becky was an ordinary girl, hired from the workhouse by traditional channels. If Sarah had ever really considered the matter, it might have been more obvious that she must receive some sort of wages. Probably not fucking often, though. Money had never been of great interest to Sarah. First, she had too much that she never had to count the cost of anything, and then she added nothing at all, and all costs were equally out of reach. Becky's wages, though, had created something of a mystery. If she was being paid, why did she seem as penniless as Sarah? See that you do! With a start, Sarah realised that Miss Minchin had concluded her tirade and was moving towards the door. She quickly hurried back to her work. Questions would have to wait for the safety of a dark attic. We're actually going to talk to her about wages. Oh, this isn't going to be a sore topic in which she hasn't heard anything for the last year, is it?